Welcome back to another episode of the We Grow Together podcast. I'm so excited to be talking about today's episode. We're going to be talking about how multi-billion-dollar deals have taught me some lessons in business and how you can take those takeaways too. I'm Laura DiFrancesco, founder of Dean Street Law, Flourish Co-working Space, Ethereal Farms, LD Brand, our educational resources with all of our takeaways. So if you're looking for more, there's plenty there and more. So today we're going to be talking about multi-billion-dollar deals and what they've taught me. If you're not familiar, through Dean Street Law, we have closed over $10 billion of transactions since founding Dean Street Law in 2019. That is a whole lot of deals under my belt. But in addition to that, prior to that, I worked in big law also for over 7 years, learning the ins and outs of big business and how those fundamental takeaways have been influential in my entrepreneurship journey and how you can take some of those takeaways as well. So I think that this is a great way to learn from others and others' mistakes and not have to make those same mistakes yourself. That is something that I try to do in every aspect of my business, whether it is learning through online courses, learning through education, investing in my undergraduate. I triple majored in international business, finance, and real estate to get a really broad and functional and specific understanding of business. And then I got my JD and MBA. So I'm a big fan of investing in education to learn and make leaps and bounds into your growth. I also do that on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis, continuing. So even though I'm out of school, I'm constantly investing in education through books I read, podcasts I listen to, courses that I purchase. I always think that it's better to have someone else learn, and I am in awe of all the information that we can find in libraries and courses and books with so many takeaways. And I'm hoping that some of my takeaways from over 10 years working in big law and big business and having my own businesses for the last 5 years as well can give you guys some takeaways to influence how you're doing business, or to at least give you ideas and inspirations that you can then decide, are these the right ones for you, or do you want to explore some other ideas and experiment? I think that's all of what entrepreneurship is about, is having problems, finding solutions, finding inspiration, cross-pollinating ideas. So here is a few for you. First off, as the lawyer in me has to tell you, it is so much less expensive to do the right thing the first time than to have to fix a mistake. It will cost you 10 times more later in the long run to fix a mistake than it will to actually do it right the first time. So I know there's a lot of rhetoric about having to get to market quickly and having to do things quickly. And there's so much pressure in today's society to not be behind the 8 ball and to not be behind the times. And everybody has their own internal pressures of feeling like they're late and feeling like they need to do things. And there's the opposite side of the spectrum where people feel like that has to be absolutely perfect before they launch and they can't do anything until they've thought it over for a couple of years. And your responsibility as an entrepreneur is to weigh those and to assess and be your chief risk officer to determine what are big risks, what are things you can't come back from or that are going to be so expensive to fix, and ones that are going to be okay that you can come back with that you can fix later. An example of that is regulatory risk. Regulatory legal risk tends to be very expensive to fix and can be deal killers, not even just deals, but business killers. They can really put you in the ground quickly, whether that's litigation or regulatory. Do those correctly the first time. I've seen too many people that haven't been clients do it incorrectly, and then try to become a client, try to come to us to fix it. And first off, we don't do any litigation. Second off, it is so painful to hear these stories of things that have gone wrong, contracts that they didn't have, or contracts that were not good, that they just signed anyways because they had understood each other and thought that it would all be fine in the end. And then when things go sideways, it's very expensive. So legal, I would say, is an area that you really want to tread carefully. Do it the first time. Don't try to fix it later. Fix it immediately if you have to, but don't try to get into a situation where you have to fix it later. It is not worth it. But there are a lot of areas where you can assess risk in your business. For instance, I have a beautiful vision of how I wanted to open Flourish and all the things that I wanted to do. One of those being I wanted to have a coffee and a barista, and I wanted to have our little spaces for conversations and privacy rooms, and I thought that maybe we could do like daycare eventually. And I had all of these ideas, and your punch list, especially when you're getting down to the wire, launching a business or launching a project, you start to determine what is something I need to launch, or what is something I need right now, and what is something that can wait. So there's where you kind of start to understand which of all of the balls that you're juggling in entrepreneurship are glass and you cannot come back from, such as, or is be extremely difficult to come back from, such as regulatory risk, legal risk, litigation risk. Do everything correctly the first time. And then what are things that you can come back from? Ideas that would be great to have, but aren't essential. And you have to really get honest with yourself about what those are in your business, because there's so many things that we want, but we have to preserve our energy and resources to not just launch, but to carry on and to be present for that launch, and to have the energy and resources to enjoy our launch and to enjoy the fruits of our labor. So don't be the person that expends all of your energy and resources just to get to launch, to not be able to keep the doors open for the first couple months, to not be able to keep the doors open for the first year because you were so gung-ho on making it so perfect the first time. You have to really balance those needs, and you are your key risk officer. You are the person that decides what risks are worth it and what risks aren't worth it, and what things can wait and what things can't wait. That is your job as the entrepreneur. With that said, building on to that, another key learning from multi-billion-dollar deals is how important due diligence is. Due diligence is a fancy way of saying you have investigated what you're doing, you've done your due diligence, you have done your work to make sure that what you are doing, it's with the right people, it's with the right products, it is in the right way. You have to have due diligence in a lot of different ways. One of the most influential of them is who you're working with, who are employees, who are independent contractors, who are customers, who are vendors. Who you work with can make or break your business. And I hate to say that because there are so many instances of fraud in the world. People who pretend to be clients, who want to give you money, who say, okay, I have to make this payment, but it has to be in this way. And it can be very challenging if you're an entrepreneur, you've never experienced this, how crazy cyber risk is and how important it is for you to do due diligence on the people you're doing business with. Now, there are ways to do due diligence. You have Dun & Bradstreet, which is a way, I believe that's the name, I think that's a way to do corporate due diligence, spending time, knowing the people, speaking, getting referrals. I don't hire almost anybody ever without a reference or referral. That may be a vendor or team member or something of that nature. So make sure you're doing your due diligence. A lot of people say hire slow, fire fast. Now, apart from the whole HR issues about that whole statement, which we won't get into in this podcast, hire slow in every aspect. Hire clients slowly in a way that's responsible and responsive to what your clients' needs are. We do a lot of due diligence on our clients without actually taking a lot of time. So we can do due diligence on a client in less than 24 hours. That's what we do. But we are making sure that we are always speaking to someone face to face. We're having conversations. We're getting details about things, and we stick to our process, because sometimes when you have these really weird out of the blue clients that it seems attractive, it seems too good to be true, that can be fraud, that can be scams, and you don't want to get in business with someone in a bad way. Now, to follow up on that, the third lesson is understand your exit. Understand your exit strategy. If things aren't the way that you think they are, know how you can get out of it. I have seen this happen in the worst ways when people have done things without a lawyer that they need to. It is absolutely disastrous. All major businesses have most of their contracts, not all of them, but most of their contracts have an ability to get out of them within 30 to 60 days so that you can cut your losses. You need to know how you can get out of things too. And this is not to be a bad actor. You need to have integrity. That's how you find people with integrity. If you're out of integrity, you will find situations out of integrity. I do believe that what we put out in the world, we get back in the world. But from a logistical, legal standpoint, I need you to know if you need to get out of a bad situation, what is your exit strategy? And where will you be if you have to exit at this point or this point or this point? And that's talking about building your client contracts and making sure that you're not the middleman left holding the bag if the client cancels their order and you're on the hook to the manufacturer for millions of dollars. Then you also need to think of what are your rights to exit if you do need to exit, and what would be fair to the people involved, both you and others, for a proper exit and for it to be the right situation for everybody. So think through your contracts, your obligations, your commitments. The next item is don't overcommit. I know that as a entrepreneur, you're taking on a lot of risks. Sometimes you have to build it so that they come. Sometimes you have to invest in the technology to be able to scale. But you always have to do it when you have a nice cushion in place. You have to be able to rebound, because I find that in entrepreneurship, it's not necessarily the good ideas that survive. It's not necessarily the scrappy that survive. It's the people who have a plan and a good way to get where they're going, but actually have plans, not necessarily like you have to have plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but you have to give yourself enough runway to succeed, enough cushion if something goes bad. You have to build your business in a little bit of bubble wrap. Those are the companies that succeed, because it's all about your longevity and your ability to continue. Your cash flow is king or queen. So knowing not just how to exit, how to be able to get out of a situation, what position you'll be in if you have to exit a commitment, where will you be, but also creating a runway of success for yourself, creating a cushion. And then the next item would be similarly be able to weather bad storms. If you've been in business long enough, if you've studied economics, you know that all things that come up go down, all things that go down come up. Economics are cyclical. There's trends in everything. If you started a business in 2020 like I did, I hope you've been able to weather the storm. We've been able to weather the storm by some quick pivots, by being really nimble and actually giving ourselves enough cushion to survive the storm. You have to not just pay bills on a daily basis, but build that reservoir, build that FU fund, build that storm protection, whatever you want to call it. It's what you need to continue keeping on when the whole world is shutting you down. And it is a hard position to be in, because there's good businesses that were started in 2020. There's good businesses that ended in 2020. It is challenging to say the least. Let me just tell you that as someone who's survived it, and I feel like I'm still feeling the repercussions, as most post-pandemic businesses are still feeling the repercussions. It's not easy to navigate a business in the best of times. And you have to be prepared to navigate the business in the worst of times. The number one question I'm asked is, how do I do all the things I do? So I put this into a course, a workbook, and a workshop where you can find all the little details about how I do this on a daily basis. And I've called it the Wild Ambition Lifestyle Design Course, Workbook, and Workshop. Transform your dreams into reality with guided vision setting, storyboarding, journaling, and all the tools I use to bring my dreams to life, with over 100 lessons, 200 plus pages of workbooks, and lifetime access so you can return to it whenever you need to. The course itself is that iterative process of how we continue to evolve over time to be the best version of ourselves. If you are an ambitious individual, if you want to make your dreams come true, I think you'll really love Wild Ambition, and I encourage you to check it out in the show notes. Start your journey today. Enroll now to dream and live with Wild Ambition. The next item I'd like to chat about is negotiation tactics and understanding power dynamics. So we've talked about having relationships, doing due diligence. Part of doing due diligence should also be understanding power dynamics and understanding negotiation tactics. This is an art and science all in and of itself. If you'd like more information about this, I encourage you to check out my podcast, Deal Making with DiFrancesco. We talk a lot more about negotiation, deal making. It is mergers and acquisitions focused at this time. We may expand beyond that in the future, but at this time, it's really mergers and acquisitions focused. And it is so important to be able to understand power dynamics and how to negotiate. Where can you give? Where do you want to start? What's your end goal? What are things that are important to you? How can you ask questions to get to understand what's important to them? How can you really understand someone's motivations and what will be meaningful to them? That is negotiation in a nutshell. If you want to be good at business, you have to be good at negotiating, and you have to understand power dynamics, because a Fortune 15 company, like it or not, has a lot of sway in the market. If you have a business relationship with a Fortune 500 company and their business is make or break it for you, that means that you're not diversified and they have a whole lot of control in the relationship dynamic. Or you can diversify your clients, diversify your income, and find that you have more say and control in the relationship. In every relationship, it's different. There may be a Fortune 500 company, but hey, you're the only person on earth with this level of expertise. You have a lot of dynamic power in the relationship to be able to influence the terms, the conditions, the relationship as a whole. Negotiation tactics and structure and strategy are absolutely everything. We've talked about risk management. You are the key risk officer in the business. What risks are worth pursuing? What risks aren't worth pursuing? We've also talked about how to set yourself in a situation where you can exit. You do have an exit. I've seen bad situations, especially when starting a business with someone, where there is not a way out of the business because they didn't structure it to have a way out of the business. They had to get someone's approval to leave the business. Imagine how hard that is to deal with, to want to exit the business, to not agree with how it's being run, and not have an ability to exit the business. So you want to manage all of your risks. Yes, as an entrepreneur, you are a risk taker, absolutely. But you have to take the right risks, and you have to protect yourselves from the risks that are unavoidable. It is absolutely unavoidable that the economy will tank. It will go down. It doesn't matter whether it's today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. We have been on bull run and bull run and bull run. And a lot of people get so swept up in it and they think it's going to last forever. And the people who win are the people who are prepared for it to turn at any moment. As an entrepreneur, I hate to say it, but you have to be prepared for that. And that's going to drive your financials and your financial decisions. So structuring your business financially, structuring your contracts financially, your relationships financially, all of that will take a role in your risk mitigation strategy. So a lot of the contracts that we work on for clients is making sure that we understand what obligations someone has, what obligations another person has to you, and where there's flow and where there's not flow, and avoiding the situations where there's not flow. Because if there's not flow in your obligations from you to another and others to you, you could be the person in the middle holding the financial responsibility when everything goes sideways. We know it will go sideways at some point or another. We have to make sure you are in a good position so that it's not you holding the bag, and so that it's fair to everyone, because it wouldn't be fair, right? And so it shouldn't be structured that way where there's someone in the middle that gets disproportionately hurt in the situation. The same thing is when you have a client contract, and let's say this is a really bad client, someone you don't want to work with. Maybe they're not paying their bills, or maybe they are so destructive to your team, they're harassing your team. Of course, good contracts are going to set good expectations, but you need to be able to exit. And if they are in such a payment plan where you have done so much work up front and they're paying for it for such a long time, yes, you can sue them, but guess what? It's going to cost money and time and resources that may be thin, that you may not want to spend on a client that you know is already may not have the money to actually pay a judgment. So remember, just because you have rights doesn't mean that it's easy to enforce them. Just because you have it in the contract doesn't mean that it's easy to win, to get to where you need to be. So not only do you have to have the rights, but you have to have the backup plans. Logistically, are you going to be, like, let's say a court couldn't opine on it, couldn't opine in your favor. Logistically, financially, are you going to be in a place where you're okay? Do your payment schedules, your financial structure, the flow of money in your business actually make sense so that you're paying for things as things are being delivered, you're getting paid as things are being delivered, you're not delivering everything up front and then not getting paid? This is going to impact your ability to get clients, because more clients want services that they have to pay for later because it costs them, and cash flow's queen for everybody. But it is drastically important to keep you in business and for your cash flow to be okay. Some of the most successful businesses I see do not have those issues because they have worked through it in their entrepreneurship stage as they're building their business, as they're setting up their financial structure and understanding how money needs to flow in and out of their business. When I was starting my business, I needed a place to create, a place that filled me from the inside out, somewhere that inspired me, helped me make content, a place where I could go to get good work done and host events, gather in community, celebrate one another, host family and friends for gatherings. So I created Flourish Co-working Space in Westchester, Pennsylvania. It's a space that nourishes you from the inside out. It's lush, inspiring environment with hundreds of plants to make you feel like your best self so that you can do your best work and gather in community in a way that's casual, inviting, and just incredible. I hope you check it out. If you need a co-working or event space in Westchester, PA, be sure to visit us and book your co-working or event today. The next item is communication and relationship building. I find that you're going to meet people everywhere in your life. And in 5 years and in 10 years, it's almost like those deposits that you make in your bank account, investing in relationships and building relationships. You will find that those compound over time. The people that you know may be incredibly helpful in your network in the future. And it's really good to continue to nurture and maintain relationships, even if you don't see how it's going to benefit you. Sometimes they introduce you to someone else. Sometimes you want to help them. And finding a cohesive balance in your relationships in business, whether that's with customers or vendors or employees or other people you're networking with, having a relationship where you choose to give, where you choose to be the person you want to be on the receiving end of, choosing to be that person yourself will attract a great tribe around you, and it will help you in the long run, because those are things that pay dividends insanely well in the long run. In big business, you see it all the time. As they say, it's who you know. I do think it's what you know too, but it's especially who you know. So invest in your relationships. I love tracking those relationships by building relationships online through LinkedIn or other platforms. I love using apps like Popple to see who I'm connecting with and giving my business card to, so I can then continue to have a process of developing those relationships. That is a huge part of every one of my businesses, because I really think that it's like deposits you make in the bank account that just compound over time. So worth every investment of your time and energy. The next item is how to scale all of these ideas to small business. as a small business owner, you're kind of focused on the day-to-day. What do you need to do next? What do you need to do next? I find it so important to pull yourself out and just spend days and hours on the structure of your business, the analysis of your business, seeing what it has developed and what you need more of in your business. What do you need to address? Are there big gaping holes? A lot of these elements can be, while they are small, they add up and they can be extremely influential. So take the time, take a half a day and say, I'm my own chief risk officer. I need to sit down with my business and get honest about what risks I have and what risks I need to address today. This is urgent. This is not something we put in the next quarter's strategic plan. This is something I need to work on today, this weekend, over time, get it done. It's unacceptable. You have to be that person in your business. That's the person I am in my business. I am constantly assessing priorities. What is the most important thing for me to work on today? What do I absolutely have to work on today? And that's why it can be really challenging to be an entrepreneur, because there will always be everything that you're juggling. You're going to be juggling every obligation that you have: content creation, podcast creation, team meetings, getting ready for onboarding, all of these things you're always going to be juggling. You have to make the hard decisions to sometimes work on the things that aren't fun, because that is what your business needs to succeed. So small business application, I'm not going to lie, it is the exact same from big business to small business. These things are just as important, but I think in small business, people don't focus on them enough, because in big business, someone's entire role is to be the chief risk officer. Someone's entire role is to be planning financial doomsday and what you're going to do. But guess what? You need to be that person in your business, and you need to rope off the time, and you need to dedicate it. And these are urgent matters. They can be, they may not be. If you've been operating in an incredible way, they may not be, but they also may be a big wide opening. I need to address this today. I need to redo my client contracts. And next time I roll out signed client contracts, it needs to be the right one. So I hope that this episode has been helpful. Let me know in my latest Instagram post, what was your favorite takeaway from today? And also, what are your takeaways? What have you learned from bigger businesses that you've implemented in your own business? One of mine is just, there are different roles in the business, and I want to see how I can be the best version of myself and hire the best people to fill those roles so that we are just as incredible of a business, especially as a small business, because we need to be even more agile, even better, because we don't have the same resources that big business does. Tell me, what are your takeaways? I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to see you in the next episode. Be sure to subscribe, leave a 5-star review. It would mean the absolute world to us. Thank you so much. Bye.